Hello, and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I feel like I'm really slumped down on this day. I am so tired. I just had to do a day at work, a wonderful day at work, a really, truly wonderful day at work, whereby the place I work for has put on a local free chalk art day down our seafront. So I've been herding children from one square to another, hello Dappy, with chalk and encouraging people to draw jellyfish and things like that. And it was exhausting. Over 100 children turned up, which is amazing work. And we were able to give them some free entertainment for a day in their summer holiday. So I'm feeling very, very pleased with myself, but also very, very tired. But here I am to give you my July reading wrap up. So these are the books that I read in July, all 14 of them. Been a good reading month. I'm filming this on the Tuesday. And then I'll just mention 2 books that I'm currently reading because I am taking August off. You may have known this, I've mentioned this in a video or 2. But yeah, I'm due a break and I'm really, really looking forward to a break. So yeah, I've got this as a break. I've got a little bit of time off of work. I've got a bit of time off of the All About the Archers podcast. So yeah. Break incoming, excited about it. Right, but let's talk about the July books. So let's go through the stats for July. So as I said, 14 books read in July, hurrah. Which so far totals 3,956 pages and almost 34 hours of listening. The main moods of reading were emotional, reflective and adventurous. I feel like I never go a month where my main reading moods aren't emotional and reflective. I'm feeling pretty emotional about, oh, it's a daddy long, oh, it's a massive spider. There's 2 massive spiders on the ceiling and Daphne thinks that she's as tall as the ceiling and can get up there. She's not. My pacing of my books, as always, medium paced. I read 18% books over 500 pages, more on that when we get to it. 45% of my reading was 300 to 499 pages and 36% of my reading was less than 300 pages. Audiobook length, pretty big this month. 16 plus hours was 33%. Oh, my fiction to non-fiction. 93% fiction, 7% non-fiction. I think that probably equates to 1 book. I think I might be right, yeah. Yeah, it is, 1 book. And I really wanted to sort of like balance that out in the actual stats, in the overall stats. So yeah, she ain't done none of that this month. My top 3 genres I read were classics, literary and historical. I read majority in print, 57%, and then 21% in both digital and audio. My average star rating was 3.41. 2 5-star books this month. So yeah, that's the stats. So let's move on to the 14 books that I read. The first one is Summer by Edith Wharton. God, I really feel like I'm really slumped in this chair. I can be, can't I? Summer by Edith Wharton. I'm doing a summer reading project over on my Instagram, which will continue throughout the summer, throughout August, despite me being on a break from making videos here, whereby I'm reading a different female author from each decade. This was the 1920s book? 1910s book. This was published in 1917. And yeah, it's been on my shelf for a while. I tried reading it last year and didn't get on with it, so I'm glad I gave it another chance because it's a pretty passionate sort of coming of age romance novel for something written in 1917. We're following a young woman, Charity, who works in the library part-time, and she gets a visit to that library one day and it's someone she's very much interested in. Hello. And then you follow that relationship and the beginning, middle and end of it really, and that is what that is all about. So yeah, it is I'm glad I gave it another go. I'm glad I gave it another go. Next up was the first audiobook I listened to, and that was in the month, and it was the end of a series that I've been, well, the end of a series of books that are currently out. So Silverborn, The Mystery of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This was the 4th book that has just come out this year in the Nevermore series. And I said at the time when I was reading it during vlogs and on Instagram and things like that, like, I really think I might have over-exhausted myself with Nevermore on the run up to it by listening to the first 3 books back to back, because Morrigan's not having a very good time in those first 2, maybe 3 books, and then she continues to have not a very good time here, and by the end of it I just really couldn't give a shit. That's a direct quote from me earlier this month saying I really couldn't give a shit. So yeah, I think maybe when I go to the 5th book, because I do think I'll go to the 5th book, that I won't rehash everything all over again, maybe I'll just read a synopsis or maybe listen to the fourth one or something like that. Because yeah, sometimes seemingly you can have too much of a good thing, but yeah, I didn't love it as much as I'd loved the series when I'd read it other times. Yeah, maybe just because I was throwing myself through it, I don't know. Next up was Behind the Scenes at the Museum by Kate Atkinson. This was a book I read for the In Real Life book club I'm part of now. Hello, at my local library. And I've been meaning to reread Behind the Scenes at the Museum for a really long time. This was one of the first books I read when I started BookTube. It was a recommendation from one of the nurses I worked with at the NHS, her husband. And I love Kate Atkinson, and this is another book of hers that is testament to how marvellous she is. Because she writes from the perspective of mainly a child, a girl called Ruby, and you go throughout her life and you hear about Ruby's like family and the people who came before Ruby and stuff like that. But the voice of Ruby is done so perfectly, particularly when she's a child, but even when she's sort of speaking from within her mother's womb at some points, and it's just really sort of like cheekily done and really well done. And her as a child and her sort of like observations as a child are just perfect, and it's really, really great. I had a really, really good time rereading it. I'm so glad I finally got around to doing it. It took a book club to force me to do it, but I'm really pleased. Had a great time. Do let me know if you've read many Kate Atkinson books, what your favourite Kate Atkinson book is. I still think mine is Afterlife. Is it called Afterlife? I'm sure it's called Afterlife. Is it called Afterlife? I can't think. I'm so tired. But yeah, I think it's that one. But Behind the Scenes at Museum, close second. Next up was another book from my summer reading project. So you may well have seen a few of these reviews over on my Instagram page, and that was Passing by Nella Larson. This was a reread for me. I read this during lockdown, I think. But this year, David and I had watched the film of Passing on Netflix, which stars Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga. And after I'd watched that, I thought, oh, I really want to return to this book and see how I get, because I found it very cinematic the first time round, and having now watched a very cinematic, beautiful black and white film of it, I was like, oh, I wonder how I approach this now reading it. And I approached this as seeing it as a very cinematic black and white film. So you're hearing about two women who used to go to school together. Both are black women, but both are very light-skinned black women. And when these two women come back into contact, it seems that one of these women has married a white man and is passing as a white woman. Not only is she married a white man, but that white man is hugely racist. And it all sort of builds up, and there's tension and there's things going on, and it sort of reaches its climax in this dramatic scene at the end of the book, which was cinematic the first time I read it, was cinematic when I watched it on the film, and was cinematic this time around as well, and there's sort of snow falling, and it's really, yeah. So yeah, I would highly recommend this. It really wouldn't take you very long either. It's 134 pages of this small little thing. So yeah, very, very good book. Very, yeah, makes you feel a lot of things. Next up was another audiobook, and it was a much better success than the last audiobook I listened to. It was I Love You, Byeee by Adam Buxton. Gave this 5 stars. I think it's the best audiobook I've listened to all year. Adam Buxton is a comedian and radio presenter and an author and a sort of creator. I think creator I would use. And I started listening to his podcast, I think because we'd heard that Louis Theroux was interviewed by him, and I started getting into him then. And now his podcast is the only podcast that I listen to every single episode, despite whether or not I know the guest or not. Now, a lot of the guests are amazing and I know them, but sometimes there's guests that I've never even heard of, and then I've gone off on a sort of tandem of looking at them. He is a very personable man and a very creative man, and I loved hearing about his creative processes in this book. So this book, he's already got another book called Ramble Book, which I listened to and loved, and this sort of chronicles the time maybe a little bit before that. I wasn't around for the Adam and Joe days, so Adam Buxton and Joe Cornish were quite big on Six Music when I was like a late teenagers, early 20s, so sort of like formative years. You'd think I'd be into that sort of thing at that time, because I was into hype, guys. And it chronicles their sort of radio relationships and why that might have come to an end and things like that, and I found that very interesting, that their sort of creative relationship ended, but their friendship has continued since then, and Joe actually features in this book, and they're very good pals still, and like that was lovely to hear. But yeah, there's just something about Adam Buxton that makes me feel super creative and super capable and able to do things. And when I was listening to it, I was just like, this is great, this is just great, everything about it is great. And he's very humble and he's very honest, and hearing about the times when he hasn't felt at his most creative or at his most productive was very, very reassuring for someone that sometimes doesn't feel, and I'm definitely reaching that point, which is why it's good I've got a break next month. But yeah, I loved this book, and I think maybe it is quite niche, like maybe you have to be a fan of Adam Buxton to read it, or listen to it. But yeah, if you're going to go to this book, then go to the audiobook, because you've got songs in there, you've got like him, you've got interviews of other people who are on there, and yeah, it's just great. Really, really, really good. Really, really good. Next up to another really, really good book. I read Atmosphere. She's gonna have to sit up a bit. I read Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The new Taylor Jenkins Reid. This would be, for me, if you're looking for a summer book to read and you don't mind a hardback, then go for this, because it was a proper page turner, as is Taylor Jenkins Reid books. Like, they're very, very good. It's all plot, and it's all really well written characters, and sort of reminds me a bit of, and I mean this in no slight at all, but it reminds me a bit of like sort of when I used to read Jackie Collins novels. You'd have like these characters that had these specific roles in this book, and in this book people have their specific roles, particularly because they're astronauts and they've got specific roles within that. But I just loved it. It's lesbians in space. You're having a great time reading it. It starts with a really sort of like massive banging opener that you're like, whoa, what the fuck has happened here? And then you read up to that massive opener, and in the process of reading all of that, you're caring more and more about these people that you know have had this massive opener in this book. So yeah, I'm trying to say all of those things without there being a spoiler, but if you've read the book, you will completely understand what I mean. Very, very good. And like I said, if you can bear to take a hardback on holiday with you, or you've got a Kindle, get this for your summer read. It's a great book. Really, really good. Next up, read on my Kindle, The Last of Her Kind by Sigrid Nunez. And I find this very, very hard to sort of, first of all, I find it very forgettable. And as I was reading it, has it ever happened to you where you're reading something and you're like, this is forgettable? I'm reading this knowing that this is forgettable. And what started off as a sort of campus novel with a woman talking about her roommate at university, and sort of having like a bit of an obsession with her and being very invested in her life, let's say, and like telling you all about that. It then moves on to some very, very like serious topics involving race and violence against women and missing women, and just stuff that I was not prepared for, because I did not think that was the way the book was going. Even with those themes, those important themes, I still feel like this is quite forgettable. There's going to be scenes in it where I'm like, what happened? And yeah, I just didn't love it. So I probably won't return to this author again, but there we go. She tried it. She tried it. Then Come and Get It by Kylie Reid, which we read for my choir book club. And I was really, really excited to read this because I'd read Such a Fun Age a couple of years ago, or I'd listened to the audiobook of it and had a really, really good time with it, and remember thinking at the time, this is such a great book club book. I love this book, and I wish I'd read this as a book club book, because there's so much stuff to discuss in there. So when I saw Kylie Reid had a new book coming out and we were looking for a book at choir book club, I was like, this is the book that we need to read for choir book club. I had such a fun time with Such a Fun Age. Let's see if it feels the same about this. And yeah, it did not feel the same. It's pretty fucking unethical what happens there. So we're following a group of teenage girls, and also a woman who is an author and is writing a book on marriage. She begins to write a book about marriage, and she goes along to interview these sort of students who are living in this like accommodation block, which is a bit unusual, I suppose. There's a lot of people in there that have got grants, and some rooms are singles and some rooms are doubles, etc. I don't know if I'm going into such detail about that, but that is what happens. And she overhears them after she's interviewed them talking about money, and decides to not write the book about marriage and to write a book about money, and to listen in on their conversations, because she becomes friendly with the person who's sort of like overseeing the accommodation block. So she sits in her room and listens to their conversations and writes it. And yeah, it really is as ethical as as unethical as it sounds. And then there's some background stuff going on, and yeah, there was still stuff in there that I was interested in. I found the whole thing completely readable, but yeah, I think I was hoping for another Such a Fun Age, and for me this just wasn't it. But still enjoyed it. Then I read The Kellerby Code by Johnny Sweet, which was a really unusual reading experience, because this book was so much like Saltburn. I almost at times felt like I was reading Saltburn. Now, I listened to Johnny Sweet being interviewed on the Adam Buxton podcast. You've already heard how much I love the Adam Buxton podcast. And he said that him and Emerald Fennell, who is the director of Saltburn, were talking about their projects that they had coming up at the same time, and were sort of, oh my God, we can't believe how similar they sound. So he was well aware that his book was very similar in premise to that of Saltburn. So if you've seen Saltburn, then you will sort of get an idea of what's going on here, and I got an idea of what was going on here. Again, a hugely readable book, out in paperback, so great for a summer read. I had to sort of rush the ending a little bit because it was due back at the library, so I feel like I could have maybe done with a little bit of more talking over of what had happened at the ending, because I was like, get it done, get it done. But yes, very entertaining, thrilling, gutty, grimy, gross read. Made me feel like Saltburn did. Yes. Then again for the summer reading project, I read Miss Bunkle Married by D. Stevenson. This summer reading project has been wonderful for me finally getting to my Persephone reads, because the other book, one of the books that I'm reading at the moment, is a Persephone book. Persephone is a publisher that publishes mainly female authors from history whose books are no longer being published. And yeah, I've had a great time, and it's such a great idea, because I loved this book, and the one I'm reading at the moment I'm really enjoying. And it's so fun that these books weren't published, had gone out of like publication and now back in published. Now this is a sequel. So the first book is called Miss Bunkle's Book, which I haven't read. And when I went into this, I was like, oh, am I going to need to have read that? I haven't, but maybe I will revisit it. And there's a third in the series as well. Miss Bunkle is an author, and in the first book, she meets and marries her editor after writing a book. And the book that she writes in the first book is a book about small town village life, and she bases it loosely on the people in her village. And then she finds that the people in her village start acting like the people in the book that she has written. So this book is now following her marriage, and they've moved away from that village and they're moving to another place, and she's got a massive stirring inside her to write something again, and she's trying not to do that, and she's trying to sort of act normal around her husband, so she's not doing that because she knows what sort of fluster she gets into when she starts writing. There's also some other stuff going on there, because there's a case of mistaken identity when she gets there, and she's mistaken for somebody who has recently changed their will, and they present her with this person's will and says, oh, is this all right? And she's reading through it thinking it's the deeds to a house, like, I don't know what this is. So she then is privy to somebody's will, and then meets these people in real life who she hasn't met before, and knows what's going to happen when this person dies and where all the money's going. There's also a lovely cute little love story between her nephew and somebody else living in the village, and yeah, I just had a really good time with it. It's just very sweet, comfy, cozy, like village life, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I will get round to the other two in the series at some point, despite having not read them in the series. Well done me reading my Persephone books, pat on back. Then I listened to Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, the first in the HMRC series by Juno Dawson. The third is now out, but I am pacing myself with these in the same way that I did, in a different way as to what I did with the Silverborn Nevermore series. But yeah, I love this series, and this first book I think is the best first book in a series with the best ending that I've read in a really long time. Juno does, she makes a pretty big decision with two main characters at the end of her first book, which I find bold and brave and shocking and wonderful to read. So after I'd finished the first book, I was gagging to get into the second book. And yeah, so I will get round to the second book at some point in August, and then hopefully in September I will get round to the third and final book. I'm saying the third and final book. There is another book in the series, which, when I say this to you, you're going to really think that I would love this, but it's about Anne Boleyn's coven. So if Anne Boleyn was a witch and the people surrounding her, it's a little novella. But I just did not get on with that. Maybe if I listen to it this time around, I'll feel a bit different. I don't know. I listened to the audiobooks of them because they're done by Nicola Coughlan from Bridgerton and Derry Girls, and she does an amazing job. And HMRC series is about a group of modern witches living in Hebden Bridge, and they've all got different powers. So like, some are healers, some are adepts and can listen in and things like that. And there's a sort of, they've just got over this sort of witch and wizard war, and that seems to be in the background. But is it in the background? And there's a lot to do with power play, and there's stuff in there about trans witches and stuff like that. Great representation, great book, great writing, and like I said, that ending of that first book is amazing. But yeah, if you're looking to get into something witchy, please do this, please. Then I read The Dilemmas of Working Women by Fumio Yamamoto, which was, I got out from the library, took it back yesterday, if you're wondering. And this is a collection of 5 short stories, but sort of long form short stories. They're all like around the 50 page mark, £50 mark, I was going to say. But about working women in Japan. And what shocked me was, as I was reading it, it felt hugely modern, and I found out that it was written 25 years ago, which I know is still 2000. Well, I mean, that feels awful to say that. 25 years ago it was 2000. But yeah, it's a bestseller in Japan, and it's just recently been translated into English. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. There's a lot in there about females, because obviously it's about working women, but also their relationships and what their roles at work and at home look like and how they sometimes overlap. And I found it interesting and informative, and in some places light-hearted, in some places emotional and reflective, those words again. And yeah, I had a really good time with it, so enjoyed. Then another book I read for my reading project, my summer reading project, which I read on my Kindle, was Towards Zero by Agatha Christie. And there's little to nothing I can sort of tell you about this book, because the plot sort of kicks off from the instant, and some of the stuff that you find out early doors then maybe comes back to help you. But it's a sort of summery mystery. It's set in a summer house, and a family and some friends and relatives have all got together in this summer house, and they're playing tennis and stuff, and you guessed it, there's a murder. And we've got people looking into the murder and why it may or may not have happened, and who did or didn't do it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't love ploughing through sort of Agatha Christie's and mysteries and stuff. I like it, and I find them all quite similar. So I feel like I need to dot them about for me a bit, so that they don't overlap for me. And then the last book I finished was a disappointment, sadly for me. It was The Whalebone Theatre by Joanna Quinn. It's a long old book, and we read it for Patreon Book Club this month. And the theme this month was books over 500 pages, and this is like 545 pages. Now, this book was fine, which is fine, but not for a book that I'm spending 545 pages on. That is long and tiring to be doing that fine for 545 pages. The parts of it that I did like and felt a bit pacier and I got into, I was like, yes, great. So we're following 3 siblings and a cousin, sort of siblings and a cousin, and their childhoods, and then their roles and lives during World War II. And some of those things were extremely thrilling and enjoyable to read about, like working sort of as a spy, working undercover, working as a land girl. I really liked all of that stuff. But then there's sort of like this crowbar thing, which you might be thinking, oh, why is it called the Whalebone Theatre? Well, as a child, one of those children found a dead whale on the beach and kept part of the bones of this whale, and has set up this theatre on the beach. And that all felt extremely crowbarred in, and metaphors for metaphor's sake and imagery for imagery's sake. And every time that came up, I sort of rolled my eyes and thought, ugh. And yeah, when we were talking about it during Patreon Book Club, a lot of people said that. We were like really confused about this title, and how maybe the book had been written and then they thought, oh, can we give it a title that might appeal to everyone? And yeah, I feel like there's different things this could have been called, and that like this just did not need to happen, the whole theatre aspect of it. And like, yeah, a lot of it felt very crowbarred in, which I found disappointing. And like, yeah, the writing for me, like that made it feel bad. It made it feel badly written. So yeah, I didn't love this very much. I think I gave it 2.5 stars. I think in hindsight probably a 2-star for me. So there we go. So the 2 books I'm reading at the moment, another one of those Persephone books, and this will be reviewed on my on my Instagram account this Sunday at tea time. Again, I'll say I'm Lauren and the Books on Instagram. This is Someone at a Distance by Dorothy Whipple. I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm just over 100 pages in, and so far we have joined an older woman who's sort of bored and unhappy at home. No one's paying her much attention anymore, and she's employed a younger French woman to come and have conversations with her in French. And she sort of G'd her up a little bit, and now she's very interested in what she might look like and things like that. And from what I understand is that this younger French woman is maybe going to have a relationship with her son, who is married with children. So we shall see. But yeah, this is the book we're reading for the 50s, I think. I think it was published in 1953. I'm correct, it was published in 1953. But I'm having a very good time with this, and I'm looking forward to maybe having a little bath with this later on tonight. And then I'm also reading Strange Pictures by Yuketsu. I bought Strange Houses in Waterstones when I was in Southend for a work trip earlier this month, and David has broken his foot. I don't know if you know, David's broken his foot, and he was feeling a bit bored, so I said, oh, why don't you try and read this book that I bought? It looked like it's pretty pacey, it's got big pictures of like floor pans and stuff like that in. So David has been reading that and has been really getting on with it, and I saw that Strange Pictures was on the Kindle at 99p. So I downloaded that last night and started reading it, and I'm already like 40% in. I'm very, very into it. They're sort of like murder mysteries. David's one is all about floor plans and like what this space could be and how this could link in with other stuff. And mine is about pictures, and particularly the first part that you join is about somebody's blog, and they're talking about how their wife is having a baby, and the wife is drawing pictures of what the baby could look like at different ages and stuff like that, and all of these pictures mean something. When you join them together, they mean different things. So yeah, it's very, very interesting, very compelling, sort of quite fun, but also quite dark and grim. But yeah, I'm having a really, really good time with that book, and I'm looking forward very much to reading Strange Houses as well. So there we go. Those are the books that I read in the month of July. Let me know what you read in the month of July. Let me know if you've read any of these 16 books that I mentioned, 14 that I've read, 2 that are on the go. And yeah, I guess have a lovely August, and I'll see you in September. It will be our time in September, won't it? It will be autumn. I'm not going to be reading or reviewing, bless you, David. I'm not going to be reading or reviewing the books that I read in August. Even on my Instagram, I'll just put up a picture of them. However, I will be continuing with the summer reading project, so there'll be book review from one book every Sunday for that, and Patreon book club will also continue. Thank you very much. I'm so looking forward to a break. And I'll see you all. I'll be creatively vigored come September. I'll see you all then. Goodbye.